Welcome. I see that we have a big group today. We have 160 participants, which is a great audience. So, welcome to this digital transformation dialogue that is co-organized by the Living-in.EU movement as part of the Goal.EU project and ITU. It's on reimagining the future of cities. So, we are tackling the topics of AI, virtual worlds, and the Citiverse. My name is Danai Pantelidi, and I represent Living-in.EU. I'm working for the European Network of Living Labs, and I will be the master of ceremony for this session. So we will be having the opening remarks in a bit, and then we will move directly to the main part of the session, which is called the Citiverse Explained, from concept to city-level impact. Later on, we will be having the interactive part and the open discussion, and then later on, we'll have the closing remarks. So without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Ivan Goychev, who is the Deputy Mayor for Digitalization and Information Systems in the city of Sofia in Bulgaria, who is also, I would like to mention, the co-chair for the Living-in.EU Digital Assembly of the Living-in.EU movement, which is happening this April, on the 15th of April. So please check this out if you're interested. So, Mr. Goychev, the word to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on this discussion and webinar. The Citiverse and the digital transformation for cities is of serious importance for us. And I'm here to share the voice of the mayor, the voice of our citizens, and the voice of a technology expert also, being myself coming with that experience from before. 2 weeks ago, we were in a meeting with another mayor from another city discussing digital transformations. And I asked him what he wants for his city. And it was very interesting how he explained it to me. He didn't say he wants a digital twin or something. He said, I simply want my economy indicators to be available at hand so that I can see trends, I can see what is happening, I can see incoming risks, as if I have a looking glass for my city. And then he also said, I want to run risk-free simulations, something that we're planning to see how it will affect the city before being built. And then I also want to see the pulse of the citizens, like, what they feel, their feedback instantly. And listening to all these three types of demands that he was explaining to me, I was like, wow, this is simple. This is very well said without using technology terms. And the answer to this is, of course, the smart city, connected Citiverse, and all these new technologies that are coming with AI-enabled experience. But he was not saying that. And also looking from the citizens' point of view, citizens also want intuitive city. They also want frictionless experience while going through the city in the real world. They want to be informed about today. They want to be informed about what is being planned. And they want also to have a seat in the table to take decisions, participate, and shape the future of the city. And they don't explicitly say, we want technology solution. We as experts, though, we know that this is possible with the technology solutions. And our work here is to translate, or probably to explain in a more easy to understand terms to all our citizens what is actually possible with these new technologies. Maybe as a professional urbanist, somebody would say, I want the city resources to be well managed. But as technology experts, we have a big and serious risk to not only explain technologies, we want to explain what are the capabilities of these technologies. So I will stop here. I will leave you with the looking glass perception, or with the looking glass picture. Everyone wants that kind of ability, everything to be easy. And I will let the floor to the next colleagues that will present what technologies can give to the cities and how maybe it could be easily installed even in a cities that don't have enough internal capacity to build such infrastructure. So I'll be also waiting here and listening for the experience and the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goychev. I think that was a very inspirational talk for some of the people here in the room that maybe think that they don't have the internal capacity, or maybe they're not understanding that much the concept. So it's essential to be in touch with the technologists and also with the public authorities for the best result possible. Thank you very much. So now let's move to the main part of the session called the Citiverse Explained, from concept to city level impact. So with us, we have Cristina Boetti, who is the ITU focal point on smart sustainable cities and AI-powered virtual worlds. And we will also have Ernesto Faubel-Kubels, who is the head of the Smart City Office of the City of Valencia in Spain, and also he's the chair of the European Digital Infrastructure Consortium on the local digital twins and Citiverse. I will give the floor first to Cristina for her presentation.
Thank you so much, Dana, for introducing me. And also, thank you so much to the Deputy Mayor for this inspiring and actually challenging consideration that he shared with us. And I think that I would say that this event, it's pretty timely, as it really gives us an opportunity to look at what the cities are really facing, confronting challenges and different pressures, from climate events that are becoming more and more frequent. Infrastructure, especially in Europe, but not only in Europe, is aging. Budgets are pretty tight everywhere, and there is, of course, a fragmentation of digital systems that is increasing due to new technologies that are becoming available, but also big use. And in that sense, every mayor has to make sure that he's on budgets. So there's really budgetary sustainability to be taken into consideration. It has also to take into consideration the operational resilience and, of course, public confidence, because ultimately we are all citizens of our cities and we want to trust our policymakers, but we want also to make sure that we are also part of the decision-making process. So I'd like actually to start immediately with a little quiz, a little poll on how does your city typically evaluate mayor investments. So what are the major investments in transport, zoning, energy infrastructure? So maybe you can quickly vote on this one. And then just to let you know that the host and panelists, we cannot vote. So we cannot influence what 230 people which are connected today, at least as of now, think. But that will give us at least an idea on how we can discuss the topic in a more pragmatic way. Okay, so let us share quickly the results. So I can see that we have statistic reports and constancy studies, 76%. And now, for a moment, I'll bring you to the reason why we are actually having this other question. Before approving a major urban project, can your city simulate financial impact, climate impact, social equity impact, citizen behavioral response, crisis stress testing, or none of the above? Okay, so we do have financial impact that is a bit more than 64%, climate impact 43%. So basically, those are more or less the two strongest opinion. And then we have social equity impact 39, citizen behavior response 27, and crisis stress testing 16. So definitely we can say that the financial impact comes on top of the priority. So why I'm asking all these questions including how integrated is your city data system today. Maybe we can launch this poll as well on fully interoperable across departments, partially connected, mostly siloed, or honestly, I don't know. Do you have any idea if your city's data systems are interconnected? So, partially connected, mostly siloed. Honestly, I don't know, and fully interoperable, very few. So that gives you a bit of the context of where cities' decisions to remain reactive, which means that cities themselves are yet actually making their decision based on reports, as you saw from the previous questions, on dashboards that describe the past, in base cases, the present, on public consultations that rely mostly on documents, and departments that operate on silos. So, how can cities plan tomorrow with tools that are built for yesterday? And that is actually why it is really important for cities to test decisions before making them. Because the idea is to help cities to transition from a reacting approach to an anticipating approach. So, what if a city can simulate the impact before investing in a specific project, in a specific technology? What if I could, as a mayor, compare scenarios before approving? So, how can we reach that risk-free zone that would allow also to make sure that budget is better used? How I can visualize, for example, the results before construction. So if I look at the urban planning, what if I could see a building, visualize the building in that specific neighborhood before I'm actually building it? And how can be better prepared, so provide a better response before a crisis? So this is really the structural shift that is underway. And there are definitely three forces that are redefining the future of cities, in our opinion. On one side, there is artificial intelligence that is becoming more and more capable. What does it mean capable? It means that it goes really beyond asking questions like ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Gemini. It's really the ability to understand the text, to understand the maps, to actually understand the physical environment, and can assist also with tasks and coordination. So that's when we talk about agentic AI. The second shift is that many cities hold valuable digital assets. They have platforms, they have operational models, they have systems, but mostly, as many of you that have voted the poll have already actually mentioned, they are in silos. They are completely disconnected. So information is not shared. You don't have that cross horizontal approach, an holistic approach that would be desirable to make sure that decisions that are taken are based on data. And there is also a third important element that is the demand for faster evidence-based decisions, which is increasing. So projects move faster, but also crises escalate quicker. And I think that what we're living today, these days, I think it's a clear example of how world is changing. And of course, being cities, the main interface with citizens, even before the national governments, that requires that leaders needs clarity before committing specific resources. So when we look at the Cityverse, is not metaverse in cities. And I think that's the first thing that you should bear in mind. The Cityverse is that digital ecosystems that brings together a series of technologies from artificial intelligence, digital twin, spatial data, spatial intelligence, immersive tools or virtual worlds, and that can help cities see the consequences before acting. That can help actually to reach that level of coordination across departments, and that can provide a more participatory way for its citizens. So it's really like a puzzle where you have the integration of different digital technologies that can create one shared decision environment. And that becomes key when, we look of what really he's able, the Citiverse, to enable in practice. So if we are able to build this kind of environment, we have a possibility to accelerate decision cycles and foster interdepartmental cooperation and coordination. Using, for example, digital twins, we have an opportunity to simulate policies before investing funds. Using spatial intelligence, we can measure, for example, the impact by neighborhood and demographic group. And using, for example, virtual worlds, we have an opportunity to make complex plans visible, more participatory, and more understandable. So that brings us actually to three wonderful consequences, which are better decisions, faster delivery, and greater public trust. And who is the main beneficiary of all this action? On one side is definitely the city administration, so the municipality, because you put in place a smarter governance, better coordination, you have fewer repeated efforts. It can boost the local economy and the industry, providing, the city as really a platform for new innovation and opportunities, ensuring that your workforce is better skilled, but also enabling a smarter and safer environment. You can also simplify services, so make it more citizens friendly, which means that you can encourage a more meaningful participation. And of course, that creates the perfect environment for partnership, for better collaboration, and for faster results. Now, cities are confronted, of course, with options. They can decide to not do anything, or maybe, the wait and see option that some of the cities are taking, or some others. And you will see, for example, starting from Valencia, but in Europe, but we do have also other cities like Rotterdam or Tampere or, for example, or Dubai, Seoul, worldwide, which are definitely engaging in this process from the very beginning. Because if a city wait, systems becomes harder and harder to integrate. The fragmentation increases and opportunities are definitely missed. So in that sense, the next few years are becoming pretty critical, especially in setting clear principles and also starting with a set of focus process projects so that scaling pilots, which are manageable, can allow the city not to scaling too fast, but to scale wisely. In that sense, the International Telecommunication Union, which is the United Nations Specialized Agency for Digital Technology, is working actually with many cities, but it's working with also its 194 member states and over 1,000 members, including companies, university, research institutes, and international organizations, in particular in the framework of a new initiative, which is called the Global Initiative on Virtual World and AI, Discovering the Cityverse. This is really a growing coalition of more than 70 partners that are working to make sure that the Cityverse, the AI-enabled Cityverse that we will build is safe, is interoperable, is sustainable, and most importantly, it is human-centered. The way on how the initiative works is through three key pillars of action. So the pillar number one is really looking at strategic guidance, developing tools for assessment and evaluations, providing guidance in terms of accessibility. Pillar two is what we define the tech pillar. So really looking at the different emerging technologies, what kind of impact they have in the city and how the Cityverse can be built so that it is safe and can be trusted. How we can make sure that we build an interoperable Cityverse. So we transition from the silo approach, which we are facing in many cities right now, including those that consider themselves as smart cities, transitioning to an horizontal cross-sectoral approach. And pillar three is definitely the pillar that more than others is really focused on raising awareness, building capacity, and providing really an opportunity to familiarize with the concept. I'd like also to take the opportunity to invite all of you to the second Cityverse Assembly that will take place in Geneva on the 12th of May. This is really an event which is jointly organized by ITU, OASC, and the European Commission, with actually the support of Stand ICT and the Cityverse initiative. As part of the work that this initiative has carried out, has developed a series of deliverables which are available for free and you can download them from our website, including gathering a series of use cases which really provide information on different examples used by cities in areas such as city administration, public safety, transport, economic development, tourism, and urban planning. So if you look, for example, at what you have on the screen for Project Seed, this is just one of the example that has been included. And you can see immediately which are, for example, the key technologies that are being used, what's the impact, what's the alignment with the Sustainable Development Goals, and what are also the risk levels. So going back to what the Deputy Mayor, for example, was mentioning in terms of risk assessment. The initiative has also worked on accessibility and it has developed a blueprint in particular that cities can use to make sure that really no one is left behind and we can make sure that a user-centric design is included in solutions that are being provided. Ultimately, the idea of this initiative is to provide a platform where cities and experts can come together to make sure that we transition or we help cities transition from a reactive approach to an anticipatory approach. So really changing the way on how the city is being managed, implementing strategic foresight from the very beginning, making sure that, for example, future-proofed innovation sandbox can help, industry to leverage innovation in a more effective way. And most importantly, citizens can enjoy hyper-personalized civic services. So rather than having the generic services provided by cities, but having a personalization that will make sure that will meet their needs. We will be discussing these issues, and in particular, we will dive into discussions related to artificial intelligence, spatial intelligence, and the Cityverse on 11 and 12 of May during the UN Virtual World Day. This is an event co-organized by 20 UN entities and really an opportunity where we could explore the overall topic of the Citiverse in a more, I would say, pragmatic way, because the question is not whether the Citiverse will emerge. It is already emerging. And very soon you will hear from, for example, Ernesto on what Valencia is doing as a city. But the question is, will your city lead or will it follow? So over to Ernesto, and then maybe we'll have time also for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christina. I think you really transmitted this urgency for the cities to be part of this wave happening now. Thank you so much. So now the word to Ernesto for the Valencia case.
Hi, good afternoon from Valencia, Spain. First, let me express my gratitude to Living-in.EU and ITU for inviting me here. It's a pleasure, and I'm honored to share this virtual stage with a visionary as Christina is. And she has explained perfectly the Virtual Worlds initiative in which we're involved as City of Valencia. And the purpose of my short presentation will be to tell you or to explain one specific use case. So Christina asked me for presenting something actual, real, that could be easy to understand and easy to check that the Citiverse is here. So the reality is that Citiverse is attracting a lot of attention. So only to see that more than 250 attendees now all around the world. In last Smart City Expo World Congress in Barcelona, 5 roundtables about Citiverse. So it's clear that Citiverse is a reality, it's trendy, and a lot of cities are working on that and try to develop our projects in the Citiverse. In the next minutes, I will try to explain a very simple initiative that is an example about what we have done. So, as Christina has explained, the initiative, Global Initiative on Virtual Worlds and AI Discovering the Citiverse, is structured in 3 pillars. I'm honored to co-lead the pillar 2 and specifically the emerging technologies, and I will focus on that, obviously, especially in the emerging technologies and use case identification. So we are producing some deliverables. The use case has been presented, a set of deliverables that I recommend you to read. So Christina has presented them, but you can download them, and it's a very interesting reading, and let me recommend you to read those deliverables. And so, focusing on that, I have taken this picture from the deliverable that has been coordinated by my colleague Luis Barker. And so, in this set of potential fields, I have selected interactive public spaces. You can see on the left that there are some fields in which we have been working on or we are starting to work on. So, tourism is a field, is a domain in which it's obvious that the Citiverse it's going to play a very relevant role in the months and years to come. So improving the experience of visitors or people, generally speaking. So, for example, it's very interesting to check different alternatives for simulation for urban design. In this case, we could have some experiences, and we are starting to use that for urban planning. And another example of domain in which we could apply this kind of tools is the virtual civil servant or the virtual town hall, in which you could have some assistance in form of avatar, and using different technologies, immersive, you could have a better experience when you are informed or assessed by different officers or civil servants. It's a very important tool, and I'm going to connect or try to connect this aspect of participation with the specific experience that I'm going to present. But participation is potentially one of the fields in which we could improve to a greater extent. Description of buildings that I'm going to link with my experience too, and the one in which I'm going to focus on the interactive public spaces. We did in the last couple of weeks ago, our mayor presented the new innovation strategy using these tools. So she went to Larinera, that is one of our hubs for innovation, for the ecosystem of innovation in the city of Valencia. And she presented in this strategy with her words, with her presentation. But apart from that, we used this immersive experience. So using these glasses, we try to present in a more innovative way, more engaging. So initially, for these specific interactive public spaces, we have identified, and all this information is compiled in this deliverable for the use cases, some impacts that could be relevant. So initially, for example, community resilience. In this case, the scope may be different, but for example, improving the quality of life for citizens because the experience is better. The participation, as I have mentioned before, with these kind of tools is much easier to promote the participation because these tools are really engaging. And we have identified this as an opportunity because, to tell you the truth, in Spain, we don't have a very strong culture and tradition for city participation. And with these tools, we will try to improve that. Obviously, new opportunities for different companies and even for tourism. That is other of the domains in which these tools will be applied. Health and well-being, and especially engagement. These experiences are engaging. And who could be beneficiary of this type of initiatives? First, with regards to the design of these public spaces, obviously planners, officers from the municipality, but mainly citizens. So this is mainly focused on citizens. And apart from that, creative people, designers, and so on, companies that are focused on technologies, especially on these emerging technologies that are the pillars for the Citiverse, developers, investors, different providers of different domains, and another aspect in which we have very strong potential for that is in terms of capacity building. All the stakeholders that could be related with capacity building would be also beneficiaries of this kind of tools. The technologies that are being used, so different platforms for the metaverse, different technologies, augmented reality, extended reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, Internet of Things is also one of the other technologies, and AI, generally speaking. And we have identified that the focus for this use case or this type of use cases in terms of these are 9 and 11. So these are the main focus of this initiative. I have taken some screenshots from the video that I'm going to play. It's a 2-minute video, but just in case it wouldn't work, I have tried to take these pictures in which, as you can see, you have this experience moving around the building. In fact, you can see different parts of the building, the actual building. So you are not in a white room with no objects. So it's a real environment in which you are part of the actual elements. You have new ones. It's a kind of augmented reality, but we prefer to use extended reality or mixed reality because you are adding new elements with which you can interact. You can browse, you can check, you can touch, virtually, obviously, but you can do a lot of things with these kind of elements. And you can see here, for example, a corridor in which you have in both parts of the corridor different elements that you can browse so as to understand better the innovation strategy that at the end of the day was the purpose of this experience. But I will explain briefly two other things about the continuity that we could do to this kind of initiatives. Here you can see Falla, that we are now in Falla's period in Valencia, that is our main festivity. So it's a kind of virtual door in which you access this space and you have these elements, the main pillars of the strategy, the elements that transversally impact the main sectors for the strategy. You could browse, you can see the buildings in which you are currently, the map with the different resources of the city. Obviously, you can touch, interact with the elements. That is really engaging. A lot of people spend a lot of time playing with that. So this is a mixed reality because some of these elements are actually there. This, for example, is in the Harinera, a flour factory, and this is the mill. You can touch and do different things, play some videos. Here you can see the different stakeholders. We are talking about, for example, the urban operating system, in which the urban platform for smart cities is obviously very important. The different scopes that we are tackling, different guidelines or sectors in which is really important. Some projects. Here you can see, for example, the EDIC, the Sitcom AI, projects that are very important for the city, monuments, tech projects. So different projects that we are tackling or managing now in the city of Valencia. And now, after these 2 or 3 projects, we are going to move outdoors. This was in a corridor, and now we move to outdoors. And probably this one of the most shocking things is a virtual fire that normally you don't have the opportunity of watching a fire, but with these tools, you can see in a big size this, and it's really amazing, this experience. So with that, I have tried to show you this experience, and let me finish with some things that we envision for the years to come. As you have seen, Valencia is committed with the Citiverse by different tools and initiatives. For example, we are in this initiative of the virtual walls with ITU and other stakeholders, UNICC, Digital Dubai, but also at EDIC, that is the consortium for digital infrastructure, in which we are working with digital twins and Citiverse. And with this, we pretend to offer better services, promoting inclusivity, so improving the experience of citizens and visitors at different domains. And finally, as we are tackling or facing new challenges in terms of climate change and other geopolitical issues, so Citiverse will be essential for the near future. Let me finish with 5 conclusions. First, the connection with the digital twins. We have a lot of experience in digital twins, and we have added this immersive line for moving to Citiverse. There are a lot of related technologies, as I have mentioned before, and multiple scope of use cases that you can check in these deliverables that we have presented. Let me highlight the fact that these initiatives are mainly for citizens, also for citizens. But as Christina has mentioned, we use a citizen-centric approach. And to finish with, it means an improved experience that promotes the participation and the engagement from the citizens. And that's all from my side. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ernesto. Thank you for the presentation and this overview of your activities. So if we can go to the first question for the audience. If your city adopted the Citiverse approach tomorrow, where would it deliver the fastest value, the way that you understand the concept now from the presentations? So 38% urban planning and infrastructure. And then there is public participation and trust and administrative efficiency, which are all, of course, aspects that Citiverse can actually support and enhance the processes. So this is very good to see that there is an understanding of how this can be adopted in the cities. So let's move on to the next question. So what is your city's biggest barrier to adopting AI-enabled spatial intelligence? So budget constraints seems to be the majority choice, so 38% on this, and also the skills gap, which is something that authorities are already working on, and also for you to be here. Now let's move on to the last question for the audience. So in one word, what must the Citiverse prioritize in your opinion? So interoperability seems to be the priority now for the Citiverse from your point of view, but also there is a matter of security, inclusion, there is trust issues that are to be addressed. So these are for sure things that you need to take into consideration when implementing the Citiverse, but also when considering its adoption. So I have seen that a few more questions have been written on in the chat. This is a question about what would be a realistic timeline for cities to start developing toward a Citiverse, given the city admin is currently mostly silos with data and has a fragmented digitalization strategy. So this is more like a political issue, structural issue? Maybe Ernesto wants to respond to that question.
If I may, I would like to share our experience. So it can be an isolated project, obviously. It should be part of a strategy. So, for example, we have a long tradition in smart cities, and we have evolved from smart cities to digital twin projects to Citiverse. And we started in 2014, but we started to deal with digital twins by 2 years ago, and with the Citiverse initiative last year. So obviously, this experience that I have shown is not the most impactful, and so it's one example of an initiative that could be isolatedly, but it's a nonsense in my opinion. So it should be part of a bigger project, a more holistic project, in which one of the goals could be the engagement of citizens, and this is one of the citizen engagement tools that we could use using different technologies, virtual, extended, or augmented reality. But for this type of initiatives, it's really easy. So you can tackle this without any background. But in my opinion, this is part of a long journey that at the end you will apply immersivity to other things. But for reducing silos and having information that could be shared, for example, in the Citiverse, so it's a long journey that starts from the smart city projects, that the main aspect of this could be the platform, that is a tool for compiling information and having all together, that is a way of reducing or removing silos. This is only my opinion, and I don't know if Cristina wants to add anything.
Now, I think that Ernesto, coming from a city, I think that you clearly explained that the Cityverse it has to be seen really as a journey. It will take a city probably between, I don't know, 3 to 5 years before it gets there. And it depends also on the city, whether the city is in undeveloped or developed countries. So as you rightly pointed out, first you need really to establish the data governance, the interoperability framework, that cross-departmental coordination that, for example, Valencia, including with the sandbox, is really putting in place. And then it's clear that the city itself needs to have needs to build a foundational digital infrastructure, because as a matter of fact, the Citiverse, as I explained before, goes beyond the concept of digital twin. It really involves a series of technologies, and then once the city has the capability, we can really look on how to scale these different integrated city platforms. So I think that if I may, I would really encourage cities to start small with some practical pilots and use international interoperable standards, so that when you expand gradually, you have really the opportunity to build something that is truly effective and meaningful. I think that Valencia is really an excellent case where you see that the city started with their journey to become smarter, to become more sustainable, and now going through the testing and use of the various technology, gradually reaching that Citiverse, which I'm sure that in a few years' time, citizens in Valencia will be definitely able to enjoy, and that could be really, I think, a source of inspiration also for other cities worldwide to, in a way, embrace this journey with I think the wisdom to know that it will take really a bit of time. Thank you.
Yeah, in fact, as curiosity, in the presentation that I have shown, in which the mayor tried and tested this solution, after checking that, she told us, so I want this kind of experiences in all the municipal buildings. So I want all, for example, for monuments, for different, for tourism, obviously, public buildings in which citizens could be there, for public library, or for old people, for seniors, or for whoever. So having these experiences would be better for them. And then she has encouraged us, or asked us, for developing new projects like that.
Thank you very much, Ernesto and Cristina. I think that was a good push for the cities to already start, and then results will take some time to be seen, but it's essential to start today. So we are closing with the remarks of Mr. Seizo Noe. He cannot be, unfortunately, live with us today, but he prepared a video presentation for us to see. So please stay a few more minutes for his closing words.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I also thank the Living-in.EU initiative for your support. The Citiverse concept is now very much a reality. Our Citiverse use case taxonomy outlines how new technologies are helping cities to make real differences to people's lives in areas from city administration and public services to urban planning, education, healthcare, mobility, and so much more. As a UN agency for digital technologies, we want every city to benefit. That's why we are developing global standards for the Citiverse and helping everyone to share knowledge. ITU standards now provide a framework to integrate AI into the Internet of Things. They also define how physical and virtual worlds can interact through digital twins. And with over 70 partners now supporting our global initiative on virtual world and AI, Citiverse innovators are demonstrating their commitment to global progress. We'll take a close look at this progress at our next UN Virtual World Day in May. I hope to see you there in Geneva or online. Thank you.
Thank you very much to President Onoe. So with this, I kept my camera off. So with this, we are closing today's dialogue. Thank you so much for attending. So thank you very much to ITU for the co-organization, for the great collaboration. And I hope to see you soon in another opportunity. Thank you so much.